individuals is Professor John Kirton, who is the founder and director of G20 Research Group at the University of Toronto. Prof, good afternoon. Well, good evening. I beg your pardon. And thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Well, it's great to be with you and all of your listeners.
Now, Prof, just talk to us about your research group and how it all came about. And you were mentioning earlier that you've been doing research and following the G20, and take us through that process and how we are here present day today.
Well, it was a Canadian, our finance minister, who invented the idea of a G20 and teamed up with his American colleague, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, to actually bring it to life. So it's the only international institution of a global relevance and reach that Canada really invented. So we were there from the start because, of course, it was authorized by the G7 summit in Cologne, Germany, and we long had a G7 research group, so we just expanded to absorb the rest of the G7. And since the President of South Africa had often been invited to the G7 summits, and because, of course, our two leaders met every 2 years at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, well, and because Africa is really a continental-sized Canada, half of it speaks English, half of it speaks French.
Yes.
We felt right at home, and that's why Canada was the first country in the world to make Nelson Mandela a Canadian citizen of its own.
Well, Prof, take us through the research that you have now worked on and put together over the years. Earlier on, we bumped into you and you gave us a booklet, and I've got the booklet here in front of me, which is the G20, the Johannesburg Summit 2025. And just going through this booklet, it's got so much information.
Yeah. If the G20 as an international institution had a permanent fixed secretariat, international bureaucrats, a building, for every summit, the secretariat would produce a background book to tell the journalists and everybody else what's going on, that have a website that goes on and on and on,
Yes.
Year after year. But they don't, so we do. We have our own G20 website, www.utoronto, contraction of the University of Toronto.ca for Canada. We produced the background book, and the opening section is all of the leaders get to tell the story about what they want this summit to do. And President Ramaphosa wrote the opening article. But our own experts then say, okay, what have G20 summits done in the past on, well, all of the key subjects, macroeconomic policy, climate change, health, gender equality, and the focus there is not just what they said and not what just they agreed to do in the communique, we will, we shall, but did they keep their promises when they went home? Did they comply with their commitments? Did they keep their promises? Did they deliver their decisions? So we have to watch all of the G7 countries and the G20 ones the following 365 days of the year to see what they're doing. Are they keeping the words?
And
so we're the global governance auditor generals.
Are they keeping their words? Are they following through with their deliverables, or is it just it becomes a talk shop? And
it's far more than a talk shop.
Yeah.
They do talk, and they write down what they said they talked about, and we measure that. That's why getting a declaration is so important, as we did here. And then they make decisions, and that's important. And they do deliver. The average over all the summits, all of the subjects, is 71%, a B minus if you use that grading system. So much better than, well, nothing, much better than, well, let's say the United Nations Security Council, right, which is vastly lower. And what we've seen most recently is that the commitments they made last year when Lulu hosted the G20 summit in Rio, Brazil. Well, we've just finally did the arithmetic, and compliance with those commitments is 70%. So at the average. And the big surprise is that the highest complier for the first time ever up there is South Africa, right? So typically it's the United Kingdom, you know, one of our mother countries, the European Union, but now South Africa is up there. So if you want to point to a country in the G20 from the global south, well, South Africa is the brightest star in the firmament. South Africa was already leading before the Johannesburg summit in keeping the promises that it and all the other G20 leaders made at Rio.
Yeah. So how do we get the other members of the G20, the other leaders, to meet to go over the threshold of 70 or 71%?
That's right. Key question. And we know that 71% is not nearly enough. So what causes compliance, and then how do you correct it? And one of the strongest findings is hold ministerial meetings, many, before and after the summit. If you do it before the summit, as South Africa did, then the ministers who actually have to put into effect what their leaders promised from on high, they know from the very beginning that they can do it, how to do it, and they feel part of it. They have buy-in. So after the leaders make the promise, they say, hey, I got my leader to do it, and all the other G20 ones too. So boy, oh boy, I'd better comply with their promises because they're really my own promises too. So South Africa, about 22 ministerial meetings on a broad range of subjects. And I think that's one of the reasons we can look forward to even better compliance with the priority commitments made here at Johannesburg, even though, well, our friends in the United States, under Donald Trump, they got the lowest score ever. It was only 27% with their Rio commitments. I wouldn't want to take a report card like that home from school when I was a kid and show my parents. But even so, I think with the boost from South Africa and from it other members of the Global South, I think we'll see pretty good compliance when we talk again next year in Miami, if you're there.
Well, you know what, Prof? Now, speaking of Miami, speaking of U.S. President Donald Trump and how he's handled the whole South Africa G20, and now there's a situation of the handover being done at a junior level, and relations going forward, especially now with the declaration having been made and being the first point of call that was mentioned by the President of South Africa this morning. What do you foresee with regards to the relations between South Africa and the U.S.? Yes, there were people here representing the U.S. And not a picture that President Donald Trump wanted the world to know. But they were here, they were present, and now the way forward. the handover. 2026 is in Miami.
Yeah, I think the tide has already turned. Let's go back. Donald Trump said, I'm not going to go. I'm going to send my vice president. Then he said, I'm not going to send my vice president. I'm going to send no U.S. government official. And oh, by the way, I think South Africa should be kicked out of the G20 for good because of this bizarre idea that it was engaging in genocide against the whites. I don't know really any South Africa. Oh, you know where in my country is that happening? It's the biggest. It was just bizarre.
Yeah.
But already before the summit even started, he said, "Okay, I'm not going to be embarrassed to have it hand over to my presidency to an empty chair. So I'm going to send a few low-ranking officials to actually have the baton tossed, and that meeting is going to happen now at an equal level over at the DIRCO headquarters in the coming weeks. But he also has said some of his priorities for Miami are very close to the Johannesburg ones. Energy security, critical minerals, right? As well as, entrepreneurship and such things. And he is started to actually put U.S. dollars, government dollars on the table for part of the pledging to the summit the day before this one. It was for the Global Fund against AIDS. TB, and malaria. And of course, South Africa is the country that suffers from AIDS more than any other country in the world. So he said all the nasty things about South Africa, but if you follow the money, he's actually putting U.S. government dollars to help South Africans live, be healthy against their number one. Nobody thought he would be a leader in global health in any way, but I think he's hearing from his people back home, including his base. And we do know from the story of Global Fund that it was Republicans, President Bush, PEPFAR, all those Christians that vote Republican, but have read the Bible and believe in it. The missionary instinct, if you will. So there's a great American history. And then, of course, when you look at all of those Americans who vote, I think of Barack Obama, whose ancestors came from Africa. Boy, Donald Trump is now so low on the polls, he needs every Afro-American vote he can get. And that'll be truer as we move towards Miami. The U.S. midterm elections are going to be bad news for him.
Yeah, well, Prof, there's a lot to unpack. What more are you looking forward to? Today was just day one. There's still tomorrow.
I'd like to see at the end of the summit the leaders promise again to do what they've repeatedly promised to do at almost every summit since 2009. End fossil fuel subsidies in the medium term, which means about 5 years. So they should have done it by 2014. They didn't, and they kept promising. And the last version of the declaration that I've seen, they said, we will eliminate fossil fuel subsidies. But there was no deadline. So, what, in the next 1,000 years? No. They should say it. We'll do it by, okay, let's give them another 5 years from now, by 2030, when the Millennium Development Goals are due to be realized. And there's a lot of work for a lot of countries to do. I think everyone has sinned in different ways.
Yes. Well, Prof, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for making time for us on Africa Update.
Okay, always a pleasure talking to my soulmates in South Africa.
Thank you for that. And we love having you here. So hopefully we'll be in Miami next year, Tracy. Hopefully we'll be in Miami next year and have a good chat and touch base on what has happened and, find out whether the numbers have increased in terms of that threshold over the 71% and not only South Africa being in the high numbers. Thank you, Prof, for your time. That's Professor John Kirton, and he is the founder and director of G20 Research Group at the University of Toronto in Canada, joining us here live at the Nasrec Centre where the G20 summit is underway.